A lot of people have been asking recently, how do I give my music a unique edge? Now, one of the ways you might go about doing this is by making your own wavetables. Wavetables are very small samples that you can use to turn into kind of bigger bass sounds. And to give you guys an inspiration about how you might go about doing this, we set out to find out which car engine makes the best bass sounds in the world. The Angeles Crest Highway. At over 7,000 feet and just a few minutes drive outside of Los Angeles, it was the perfect place for our recording. Naturally, I was the first to arrive. Now, you see, I've done this properly. Lamborghini Gallardo, 5-litre V10 making over 500 horsepower. It might not be purple, but it's going to make the best bass noises you've ever heard in your entire life. Next to arrive was Barely Alive. Willie, what the fuck is this?
Hey, what's up, Dodge? Oh, this is the Corolla.
Why did you bring a Corolla?
I don't know.
Willie, the idea here was to find the best car engine bass sounds in the world, and you picked a Corolla.
But it's got 4 wheels.
Oh, God.
Last to arrive was Virtual Riot.
Is that where's Valentin's car? Valley, did you not understand what we were doing today? Where's your car?
Dude, don't you know I don't have a driver's license?
Oh, you could have told me. I would have invited somebody else. How are you going to record that?
I thought we could maybe just do like...
Oh, for God's sake. So we're going to be using industry standard microphones, recording gear, all that kind of stuff for recording this. And just to make sure this is a very fair comparison, we brought along an independent adjudicator.
Do we really need him?
I don't really know. I've seen a few of these videos and I figured we probably needed some kind of testing person to make sure. Is he just...
You sure this is a professional?
I think he just hit the recorder with a hammer.
He's got a lab coat, of course he's a professional.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I think he just sniffed the Lamborghini.
First to go was the Lamborghini.
There we go, beat that.
Next, we recorded the Corolla.
Yep, that's it. It's an engine.
Finally, it was the turn of the Skateboard.
So I think by just smashing it on the ground, we can get some really good transients out of this. And then we definitely need some top-end noise. So I might just scrape it over the ground like this. We can also create some great Foley by rolling rocks over it. So as you can hear, every rock gives it a different kind of sound. So we can try small rocks or big
After an
rocks.
extensive and highly scientific recording session, we retired to the studio.
All right, now, welcome to the studio. First, I want to show you the recordings we got from the cars as well as from the skateboard. So over here, I've already got them off my recorder. In purple, you can see the recording of the Lamborghini, in white, the Toyota, and in yellow, the skateboard. Let's have a listen. Now for the Toyota. And finally, the skateboard. First, we're going to try and make a bass sound out of the Lamborghini. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to import the sample we recorded into the software synthesizer called Serum. Now, to those of you who are not that familiar with music production and sound design, what is happening here is the whole sample is going to be chopped up into little bits. Maybe the size of only a fraction of the original waveform, maybe a little section, just the length of, let's say, this little section here. And it's going to be chopped up into many little bits that we can now scan through, as you can see over here. So there's this three-dimensional view where we can scan from the beginning to the end of the sample, and it's going to play us little bits of it that just sound like this, or this, or this. And now we can sweep through the original recording to make the sound morph. Now that sounds very messy, so the first thing we got to do in the software is we got to clean this up. We have a few tools in here. For example, we can first of all select only a few of these frames that we want to work with, because maybe there's some silence at the beginning, some silence at the end of it. So actually, I think the moment where the engine turns on at the beginning might be the most useful even, because it has a little more low end. That already sounds like a growly bass noise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and the first few frames is where the car turns on, and then everything after that I will remove. So remove from selected till end. Now we're left with about 56 frames. As you can hear, these sound really chunky and there's no transition between them. So we can fade them together with a tool in here called Morph. So now there's a little crossfade between each of them. So now this already sounds a little more seamless. There's still a little bit of high frequency buzz in there because of the little clipping that's happening here. So we can remove that, clean it up a little bit, then normalize it, bring it all to the same volume. And finally, we have a proper wavetable from a Lamborghini. So now the next step is to do the actual sound design process by editing this waveform, adding filters and effects. So we're going to do that now. The first step would be to maybe warp this waveform by stretching or shrinking it with different functions we have here. And finding sweet spots in this wavetable that sound particularly good. And now we can start modulating all these knobs with the built-in LFOs and envelopes. Let's add a filter over here to cut off some low end and bring in a resonance peak. Add a sub-oscillator for sub-bass. And compress and detune. So now over a basic dubstep drum loop, this would sound something like this. But to be honest, I'm not that satisfied with the wavetable I got from the Lamborghini. We should try the Toyota next and see where we can get with that. So we're going to go through the same steps, importing it into our synth. And again, we get a somewhat messy wavetable out of this. I kind of like what we're getting in the beginning here. So now I have to go through all the cleanup steps I already told you before again. So let's do that real quick. Now that I've cleaned this up, let's hear what this sounds like. I already like this very metallic beginning here. Almost sounds like a robot talking. Maybe we can do something with that. So I'll make the synth go through the first bit of the wavetable, like this. That's a little too fast. Until I find a sweet spot. Where was it? Now modulate the volume, add a sub-bass, add a filter, and because I want to go for this metallic sound that the wavetable already has, we're going to add a different kind of filter in the effects section this time that's going to enhance this metallic-y noise. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. With a little more detune, we can make the sound even bigger. The only thing I'm missing here is some high end in the high frequencies, because it sounds a little bit muffled. So luckily our synth gives us the option to add a little bit of white noise on top of this, that we can fade in with an LFO as well. Alright, now with a drum loop, this is going to sound like this. But I'm still not satisfied. Last but not least, the skateboard. This is going to give us a way different result, I think, because it's not one sustained noise like the car engines, but rather lots of percussive little clicks. So we're going to import that into our synth now and see what it sounds like. So that's really cool. You can see all those little clicks suddenly showing up in the waveform here. I really like this part over here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cherry pick 10 waveforms out of this wavetable. Maybe that one, maybe this one. And then we're going to crossfade them again. After I've looked through all the waveforms, my favorite ones were these. So we're going to crossfade them again with that method I showed you earlier, so that they now sound like this. I really like the sound of this. This is very gnarly. All right, let's normalize them all, use the crossfade on the edges again, and now we can start making a sound out of this. For this one, I might actually use another little peak on this filter here to create a more vowely sound that sounds like a voice. We can even multiply the voices of the oscillator and start detuning them against each other, giving us a very wide and washed out sound. We can even make the articulation of the sound more complex by using different speeds for our modulations. Right now, everything just repeats at one monotonous. But if we change the timing of the modulator that changes our wavetable position to half the speed, suddenly we get... So this way we can quickly change the articulation of this sound, and I really like where we're going with this right now. So out of all three sounds, somehow I like the skateboard one the most. Let me do some more magic to it and see where we can take this. Alright, so after only 5 minutes of extra work, I have made this out of all three samples together. So I've color graded them so you can see the purple clip is the Lamborghini noise, the yellow one came from the skateboard, and the white one is the Toyota. Let's have a listen. So, as you can clearly hear, the skateboard made the best bass sounds in the world.
A little chop chop.